Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. Now this is a continuation of my series where I show the 10 worst songs from my 10 favourite artists, but I've also wanted to do another artist, and that is the Beatles, and I'm going to do them today. They just fall outside the top 10. Now I will admit that the Beatles were the best band ever, but they don't get into my top 10 because they weren't really my band. They were my brother's band. He bought all the singles and the albums in the mid-70s, and growing up all I heard was the Beatles, and I do love all the albums. So I thought I would do the 10 worst songs. A couple of rules. First of all, no cover versions, so they are excluded. Also no link songs like Sgt. Pepper Reprise, Dig It, or Wild Honey Pie or anything like that, so they're out. And also no blatant experimental tracks like Revolution 9 and You Know My Name. They're out. And finally, I'm not including the 3 ones they did in the 90s, even though if it did, Now and Then would be in this list because I just don't like it. Have the single for completion's sake, but I don't like it. So let's get into this. My number 10, going from the 10th worst to the worst. Number 10, and I have to give it to Within You Without You from Sgt. Pepper, the George Harrison song. A couple of things wrong with this. One, it's far too long. It really is. It goes on forever, and it is very, very drony. Now I do like George Harrison's Indian music. I really like Love You Too and Dinner Light. I think they're very good, and I also like the one of Magical Mystery Tour, Blue Jay Way. I think it's very good. But Within You Without You, it's not a disaster, put it that way. But it is tedious, I find. And if that had been replaced by Strawberry Fields Forever, you know, it would have really enhanced this album. So although not a terrible song, I just find it a little bit tedious, and it pops in at number 10. Okay, at number 9, and if you asked me this about 30 years ago, this would be nowhere near the list, because I absolutely loved it. And it's from Please Please Me, and it's There's a Place. And it used to be my favourite track of Please Please Me, but there's a reason why this now is in the 10 worst, and that is the CD. Whenever I first heard this song from my brother's LP, it was on an old Ferguson record player, and it sounded great. Whenever I first heard the CD and I could actually hear the singing, I thought, my God, they're so out of tune, especially in the first few words, There's a Place Where I Can Go. It's almost like howling to me, and it's just destroyed the song, you know. So playing on a lo-fi system, it sounds great. Playing on a hi-fi system, it does not sound good at all. So it gets my number 9. At number 8, and it's a B-side. It's B-side of this single here, and it's B-side of Ticket to Ride, and it is Yes It Is, which did not get on any of the albums. And it's not a bad song, but yet again it's a bit boring. I always find this sounds like attempting to be a little Roy Orbison-y. The chorus is actually quite good because it's they sort of uplifted a little bit, but the Please Don't Wear Red Tonight and all that sort of carry on. The verses, it just does nothing for me, and I just find it a little bit tedious. But it is only a B-side, and it never got on any of the albums, so it gets my number 8. Okay, at number 7, and we have from A Hard Day's Night, and it's When I Get Home. And this is not a bad song. Now I admit at the start I hated this song. I really did. I detested it. But it's grown on me a little bit, but I still can't get over the oh, oh eyes that go through the whole song, and it destroys it for me. The general tune of the song is actually quite good, but those piercing vocals just destroy it. And for me, this is the worst track off this album by a good bit. So at number 7 is When I Get Home. Okay, at number 6, and it is from Yellow Submarine, and it is All Together Now, the Paul McCartney song. Now this is a children's song, so take it as it is. It's not bad, but it is so repetitive, it is so silly. You compare it to the other songs that were written for this album, well, not necessarily for the album, but the new songs on the album, and it is very, very weak. It works better in the film whenever you see them together at the end of the film. I haven't seen the film for years, by the way, and it works better then, but overall, no, it's not great at all, so it gets my number 6. At number 5, we go back to Please Please Me, and it is the track Ask Me Why, and I think this was a B-side of Please Please Me itself. But the thing I don't like about this is whenever they sing things like Now You're My Yang, and in Thai Yang, and it just gets on my nerves, and it does sound as if it's from about 1960 rather than 1963. You know, the Beatles were the band that changed rock and roll and brought rock and roll back, but to me this one is a step back in time, really, and it's not one of my favourites. Okay, at number 4, we have from With the Beatles, and it is I Wanna Be Your Man, and this is such a throwaway song, it really is. You can understand them giving it to the Rolling Stones, and that version is not very good either. I just don't really like it. Suzi Quatro did a version of it which wasn't too bad, but overall the song is not a good song, and it was given to Ringo to sing, and it's the worst Lennon McCartney song off this album, so that's why it gets my number 4. So, by the way, this is the cover. This is my favourite Beatles album cover, With the Beatles. Not Meet the Beatles with all the writing in the slightly blue cover. With the Beatles, the British one. I think it's fantastic. Okay, at number 3, and we have from Let It Be, and it's George Harrison's For You Blue, and this is just a very lazy bluesy workout, and you know, it does sound as if it was written in the studio and they were only messing about, and then a song was made out of it, and I find it very, very dull. I find the slide guitar very dull, and is certainly not one of my favourite songs off this album. So For You Blue, not one of George's best, and for some reason I think it got on to the best of George Harrison from the mid-70s. Don't know how, but it did. So For You Blue is my number 3, and my second worst Beatles song, and I think this is the most underplayed Beatles song in their whole catalogue when it comes to their albums. If I was a betting man, I would bet that this track is the one that's been played the least, and it's from the White Album, and it is Good Night. And the reason why it's probably one of the least played is because it comes off after the dreadful Revolution 9. However, the song itself is so slushy, I just don't enjoy it at all. It was given to Ringo again to sing, and the thing about it is, it would have been better if the song had been, say, 50 seconds long to finish the album, but it's a full-blown song. I think it's around 3 minutes or so, and it is just boring, and I don't like it. Most of these songs I do like, the top 3 I just don't. And my least favourite Beatles song, and I wasn't going to include this because this is technically a live song, but it's on Let It Be, and it's One After 909, and I just don't get this at all. I can understand the guys having a great time doing it, because it was one of those very early songs that they recorded, but it was never released on Please Please Me, and it was never released on With the Beatles. So if it wasn't good enough for those 2 albums, how come it's good enough for Let It Be? The best part of it is the keyboards by Billy Preston, without a doubt. And yes, as I say, you know, the guys are having a really good time singing it, great. But I've just never liked it. I just thought it was a very, very basic rock and roll number, and it just doesn't work. So One After 909 is my least favourite Beatles song. So there you go, that's my list. So 10 tracks, the worst songs of the Beatles. I would say from 10 to 6 are okay, and from 5 to 1 I just don't like at all. Okay, that's me for now. The next one will be Behind You, The Smiths. So it'll be the 10 worst songs of The Smiths, a band that I absolutely love, still love. So all the best. Bye bye.